Okay, real talk. What if I told you that everything you think you know about money, savings, and financial security is basically one bad day away from becoming a fairy tale? I know. You're probably thinking, that'll never happen to me. I live in a stable country. My bank's got my back. Yeah, that's exactly what people said in Lebanon, in Argentina, in the American South, in ancient Rome. And every single... Let's kick it off with the Byzantine Empire. Now, most people barely remember this thing existed, but for over 1,000 years, it was the power player of the medieval world. And at the center of everything was this gold coin called the solidus. Merchants from Europe, the Middle East, Asia, everybody accepted it, no questions asked. It was basically the dollar of its time, the world's go-to currency. But here's where it gets wild. The Byzantines had already watched Rome destroy itself by watering down its silver coins, shaving them, mixing in cheap metals, until they were basically tin spray-painted silver. You'd think they'd connect the dots, right? Nope. Centuries later, they pulled the exact same move, but with gold this time. Slowly started cutting. Now let's talk about something that hits a little closer to home. Mid-1300s, Europe gets slammed by the Black Death, the most devastating pandemic in human history. We're talking nearly half the population gone between 1347 and 1351. Cities emptied out, entire villages just vanished. Sounds like pure catastrophe, right? And it was, for most people. But here's the thing nobody teaches you in school. For people with liquidity, cash, silver, tradable goods, the Black Death was actually an insane wealth transfer opportunity. Morbid? Sure. True? Absolutely. When half the labor force disappears, the workers who survive can suddenly demand way higher wages. There was too much land and not enough people to farm it. Houses stood abandoned. Fields sat empty. If you had any kind of... Fast forward to 1340s Italy. Florence is basically the Wall Street of medieval Europe. The Bardi and Peruzzi banking families are loaded, like absurdly powerful. Everyone trusts them. They're too big to fail, right? Then they made the rookie mistake of lending a ton of money to King Edward III of England to fund his wars with France. And when Edward decided, hey, he wasn't going to pay that back, these massive banks just folded. Depositors lost everything. Trade froze. Florence, one of the richest cities in Europe, got thrown into chaos. And the ordinary person who had trusted these seemingly untouchable banks... Here's the part most Americans never learned in history class. During the Civil War, both the Union and the Confederacy were basically running broke. The North printed greenbacks, paper money backed by nothing but a promise. And yeah, at first it seemed kinda bold, kinda patriotic. But the more bills they printed, the less each one bought. Classic inflation. Down south, way worse. The Confederacy printed so much currency that by the end of the war, prices had risen thousands of %. Soldiers were getting paid in cash that was basically worthless before they could even spend it. Families were hauling bags full of bills that couldn't buy a loaf of bread. By 1865, Confederate currency wasn't just weak, it was dead. Let's hop over to France in the 1790s. Revolution's in full swing. The monarchy is toast. The new government seizes all this church property and has a bright idea. Let's back a new paper currency, the assignat, with the value of all that confiscated land. Sounds reasonable on paper, right? But then they started printing more, and more, and more. Each new batch diluted everything that came before. Prices spiraled, wages couldn't keep up. Farmers flat out refused to accept paper money for food. Now let's bounce to Asia, 1997. Thailand had been borrowing heavily in US dollars, betting that its currency peg would hold. When it didn't, when speculators attacked the baht and it collapsed, Thailand's debts suddenly became impossible to pay back overnight. That panic spread like wildfire. Indonesia, Malaysia, South Korea, currencies falling like dominoes. Governments were begging the IMF for rescue packages. Unemployment shot up. Ordinary people watched their savings evaporate and their mortgage costs double. If you think all of this is ancient history, let me bring it right up to the present. Between 2019 and 2021, Lebanese banks did something that sounds straight up unthinkable. They locked their doors. People woke up and their deposits were frozen. Withdrawal limits were slapped on. The Lebanese pound lost over 90% of its value. A lifetime of savings became pocket change. And it wasn't just people scraping by. Doctors, engineers, retirees, middle-class families, anyone who had trusted the system got wiped out. They lined up outside banks begging to access their own money, and they were told it was gone. Here's the cold, hard truth. Your money in a bank is not your money sitting in a vault. It's a...
All right, so now you're probably thinking, cool, everything's doomed, what am I supposed to do about it? Here's the thing. History doesn't give you one universal answer, because every collapse is a little different. In Byzantium, it was real gold. After the Black Death, it was liquidity to grab land. In Florence, it was not putting all your trust in big banks. In the Confederacy, it was hard goods. In France, it was food and property. In Asia, it was avoiding foreign currency debt. In Lebanon, it was getting your money out before the doors closed. The situations change. The theme never does. Survival belongs to people who recognize what...
But I want to leave you with something deeper than just buy gold and land. The people who really thrived through history's worst collapses weren't always the richest ones going in. They were the ones who could produce something when systems broke down. The baker who could still make bread. The mechanic who could fix things. The farmer who could feed a neighborhood. The trader who knew how to move goods across borders when everyone else was paralyzed. In every single crisis, money loses meaning, but production never does. People still gotta eat. They still need shelter. So here's the question I want you to sit with tonight. When, not if, but when the next crack happens, which side of that transfer are you going to be on? Are you going to be the person holding promises that just vaporized? Or are you going to be the one who saw it coming, stayed ready, and came out the other side holding something real? History isn't trying to scare you, it's trying to teach you. The same patterns, the same warnings, the same opportunities, repeating over